Freebie module, how to use Twitter to achieve media coverage.
Hi, Claire from PR Unlocked here. I'm really excited to introduce this completely free training module to you. It's all about how to use Twitter to help your PR. Now, I use Twitter every single day for my own PR as well as my clients as well. You can get some fantastic media opportunities if you know how to use it effectively. The format of this training module is really similar to the training modules within the PR Unlocked paid program. So it will give you an idea if you're thinking about signing up but you're not sure what to expect. Typically, it follows a similar sort of format and the look and feel of this training module. So grab a pen and paper because there's going to be some really good tips and some actions that you can do straight away. And yeah, hopefully you'll get some great media opportunities from it. So enjoy.
In this module, we're going to cover why Twitter is such a good tool to use to help your PR and to generate media coverage. We're going to be looking at the hashtag journorequest, which some of you may be familiar with. We're also going to be looking at how to find and engage with journalists, also how to look at trending topics and breaking news stories and use those to tap into for your own PR activity. Finally, we'll also look at how the content that you share can also help you to engage with journalists and secure media coverage. Why is Twitter such a good platform? Twitter is one of the most powerful free tools you can use for PR. Now, Twitter is a social media platform. You can use it for lots of different purposes, but for the sake of this module, we'll be looking at how to use it for your PR activity and to generate media coverage. There are thousands of journalists on Twitter. Some statistics show that 70% of journalists see Twitter as a valuable social media tool, and journalists also make up the largest category of Twitter's verified users, nearly a quarter of them. Now, a verified user has a little blue tick after their name, so you know that they're a real person, they're reputable. Twitter has deemed them worthy enough to be verified. Journalists actively use the platform to find spokespeople, case studies, and breaking news. If you think about the way that news stories unfold these days, Twitter is the perfect platform for it. It's quick, it's instant, and you can get easy updates and you can share content with people all around the world. Twitter's also a really good way to build relationships and engage and pitch to journalists as well. You don't need to spend loads of money on journalist directories and databases. You can find a lot of the journalists that you want to engage with right here on this free platform. You can also use Twitter to find trending topics and breaking news stories, which you can tap into for your own content and news stories and features. Here is a snapshot of just some of the media outlets that I've secured media coverage either for my own business or for my client's business using Twitter. Now, there's a few different ways that I've achieved media coverage for these media outlets. Some of the journalists writing the features use the hashtag journorequest, which we're going to come on to, whereas others, I use Twitter to find topical news stories to then pitch in directly a feature or an idea to a magazine. So as you can see, these are really big media outlets. We've got national media coverage there, broadcast. We've also got some trade publications, so for example, HR magazine, and also sort of women's magazines and family as well. Okay, now it's time for an action. If you've not already, I want you to go to Twitter and set up a Twitter account. When you're setting it up, think about your profile and how it looks. So make sure you've got a clear, concise biography that explains who you are and what you do. Think about keywords here, because sometimes when people are searching for people on Twitter, they might use relevant keywords. So for example, for me, I make sure that in my biography, I've got the words PR and marketing, so that if anyone's finding anybody who tweets about that or shares information about PR and marketing, hopefully I will come up. Also make sure you've got a link to your website as well. You might want to include contact details such as an email address, but it's not compulsory. Also think about the pictures that you use. So your profile picture should look professional yet approachable. And if you've got a header banner as well, is it on brand with your business, or does it give a bit of a hint about what it is that you do and what you're an expert in? Then you need to start finding people and influencers to follow. So you can search for specific people you know by name in the search bar of Twitter, but you can also search for keywords. So just as I've explains it's a good idea to put keywords in your own biography. Say if you're searching for, I don't know, fitness journalist, for example. If you search fitness journalist in the search bar, then you might find people who have that description in their bio. You'll also find people who are sharing content with those keywords too. And then, as well as finding people and influencers to follow, so these might be people who work in your industry or are, they're quite well respected in your industry. Also, find and follow journalists and editors. So, we've got a blog post which is 100 journalists to follow on Twitter, but you can also find your own editors and journalists. So, if there's a particular sector that you're very active in, why not have a look to see what magazines are in that sector and have a look at what journalists and editors for those magazines you can find on Twitter. Okay, so I'm just going to show you on Twitter what I meant just then when I was going through the actions. So this is my personal Twitter account. So this is my homepage. And then if we first of all look at my bio and profile, so you'll see here I've got my profile photo. The head banner there is very in line with my brand colours of Unhooked Communications and also PR Unlocked. That's actually one of the images that I use on my website, Unhooked Communications. And then for the bio here, I've got PR, marketing, creativity, and business, because those are sort of the 4 key areas that I focus on across my main businesses. I also say the companies that I work for, so we've got Unhooked Communications there, and also PR Unlocked, and also the Northern Creative Collective, which is a networking and support group that I run. I've also got my email address there, so if anyone does want to get in touch with me, they can do so easily. And as you can see, I've got a link to my main website, Unhooked Communications, there. Now, in terms of finding people to follow, so say for example, I wanted to find people who were talking about marketing. Type it up there. Now, the way Twitter works is, so if you look over here, so keyword there, marketing, so top, it always goes to top by default. So this is the top. You see you've got some profiles there and also people sharing content. And you can see, for example, the keyword is highlighted. So I want to find people who are involved with marketing. So here are all the kind of users where the keyword marketing is in their title or in the description. So that's why it's a really good idea to use the relevant keywords, because then when you're looking for people who are relevant for your industry, so you can see what they're sharing. When you're looking for influencers or people who are quite well known, it's an easy way to find people that way. And likewise, if you use those keywords in your own bio, then hopefully you'll attract more followers as well. Now we're going to look at journorequest, which is a popular hashtag used on Twitter. You might have already come across journorequest on Twitter if you started to do your own PR. It is a great way of finding out what editors and journalists are working on there and then. However, I see people make the same mistakes every single day, so I'm going to go through the best way to approach it and make sure that you're not making the same mistakes and maximising your opportunities to get some great media coverage. Now, if you're quite new to Twitter and you're not quite sure what hashtags are, they're basically used to tag and categorise content on Twitter. Journalists use the hashtag journorequest when they're looking for information, quotes, and case studies. The hashtag journorequest is increasingly being used by people who aren't journalists. So when you start exploring on Twitter and look to see what's being tagged with the hashtag, you might notice bloggers, for example, using it to try and get some free samples or looking for new brand partnerships. You might also see PRs and businesses using it if they've got a news story or some statistics or an infographic or something that they're trying to get some media coverage with. They might use the hashtag journorequest to try and secure more coverage. I don't think it's necessarily a very effective way of using the hashtag. I doubt many people would actually pick it up that way. So you might have to search through some content and tweets which aren't relevant, but there are some really, really good opportunities which are being shared via journorequest. But you need to know how to spot the good opportunities, you need to respond quickly, and you also need to respond effectively as well. I'm going to go on to talk about the best way to approach it in a minute. But I also wanted to point out there is another hashtag called PR request. Now, this isn't typically used by journalists. It's mainly used by PRs, whether it's working for a PR agency or a freelancer or a consultant. Sometimes there are still some good media opportunities to be had with the hashtag PR request. For example, I've worked with businesses before where we've secured a feature opportunity, say in a national magazine or a newspaper, but the journalist or the editor wants maybe one more case study to explain what points we're making. So we might use the hashtag PR request along with the hashtag journal request just to try and expand our reach and to also show that it's a partnership with another business and a brand rather than a straightforward a journalist. Okay, it's time for an action. Go onto Twitter and in the search bar, search for hashtag journal request. Have a little look around and see what requests have gone out, see how people are responding. Now, remember to select latest rather than top. On Twitter, the default setting will show you the top tweets using the hashtag rather than the most recent. Remember, you've got to be really quick to maximise your chance of securing media coverage using the hashtag journal request. So there's no point looking at the top tweets because they're probably the top tweets because a lot of people have already responded to them. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here in a minute. Have a look through the journal requests. Are there any that you could respond to? For example, maybe somebody's looking for a case study or an expert in something that you can comment on, or maybe people are looking for responses to something that's happened in the news, and maybe the news story is something that affects you or your business. Then you need to pitch in your comment or quote. Now, I mentioned earlier that I see people make the same mistakes over and over again on Twitter using the hashtag journal request. So many times I see people responding to national journalists who are very, very busy saying, "Hi, could you send me more details?" Or, "Sure, can you email me more contact details?" Don't ask them to contact you. You need to make it as easy for them as possible. Journalists are really, really busy, and especially if they're working for a big title or a big newspaper or radio station, TV show, they will be inundated with responses to their journal request. So you need to get in there as quickly as possible and you need to make it really clear why you're the best person to help them with their request. You can tweet them. You could also try sending them a direct message. Sometimes journalists will have their direct messages, also known as DMs. They'll have their DMs open. Normally, you can only DM people if they follow you. But because journalists want to hear from people and they want to hear tips for stories, they'll have them open so that you can contact them, even if they're not following you. Personally, I prefer emailing. Often, journalists will have their email address in their bio, or you might be able to find it easily online. If it's not clear what their email address is, you could tweet them or message them to ask what the best email address is. In the PR Unlock training, I also give you some real life examples of how I've pitched to secure national media coverage. You can also go to the website journorequest.com. This is a website which is managed by ResponseSource. ResponseSource creates lots of different tools for PRs and people working in communications. One of the services that it provides is a journalist request system. It works a little bit like journal request on Twitter, except to access it, you have to pay. And you might say, well, why do I need to pay for something like that if I've got something like Twitter that I can use? A lot of journalists won't use Twitter because they know that they'll get so many people responding, or maybe they're looking for a really specific case study or information or working on a feature, or maybe they don't want their news story that they're working on to be promoted to everybody. So they might use this. Now, if you use ResponseSource, you do have to pay for it, but one of the kind of the free tools that ResponseSource offers is a daily newsletter which comes into your inbox around, I don't know, it's usually sort of mid to late afternoon, and it has a summary of the day's journal requests. It is really useful and it means that at least you can get everything in one go and you don't need to keep reminding yourself to look on Twitter to look at the journal requests. But again, because time is of the essence when it comes to responding to journal requests on Twitter, sometimes you get the newsletter and you might see something and think, oh, that would have been perfect for me to comment on. But if the journalist shared it in the morning and it's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon, chances are you've already missed the opportunity. So it can be good and it can save you a little bit of time, but just be aware that it might be worth just checking in on Twitter maybe once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Okay, I've come onto Twitter now to show you what I meant with those action points. So I've typed journal request up at the top using the hashtag, and you can see over here that it's automatically showing me the top tweets and the top results. So at the very top here we've got people, so you can follow hashtag journal request, so definitely do that. And then Sarah is a journalist who quite often uses journal request. Oh, it says she started it there. There you go. And because this is the top content that we're being shown here. So Alison writes for Forbes. There we go. You can see that she shared this tweet 5 hours ago. Now, Forbes is one of those sort of publications that a lot of business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs want to be in. So Alison's tweets always get loads of engagement, and you can see there's already been 18 people respond over the last 5 hours. Now, these are people who've chosen to respond via Twitter. But chances are that she's had loads more emails and direct messages as well. So would I reply to that one? I probably still would. 5 hours isn't that long ago, but I would be happy if I got an opportunity. I would imagine most of them are already taken up. We go down here as well. So Yessie is a tech journalist, I think. Yep. And so she's even making a joke. Look, so I've mentioned, popular journalists and media outlets, if they send a journal request, they will get inundated. And as you can see, on the day that I'm recording this, it's actually the budget day. So there will be loads of businesses trying to respond and react to what is announced in the Chancellor's budget this afternoon. And so she knows that she's asking for a lot of emails this afternoon. So you can have a quick scroll through, but as I said, it's best to go to latest. So if we look at latest now, as you can see, so the first one up here is a gift guide for a blogger. This isn't really very relevant, I don't think. Here we go, somebody looking for a case study there. So she's a producer for BBC, also writes for Huffington Post. And so she's looking for case studies of specifically people in North Yorkshire, if they've been made to feel uncomfortable by health practitioners for being LGBT. Scroll down here as well. Again here, this is a project from somebody from the BBC. This one is a blogger request, so it might not be one that we want to focus on. And here you've got one from 5 News there. So you can scroll down and you can see all the different great requests. Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about journalists. Journalists don't always use the hashtag journal request. They might still send out a request but not use the hashtag, and there could be lots of reasons for that. Maybe they forget, or maybe they just don't want to be inundated with loads and loads of pictures. They might also use Twitter a bit more passively as well. So rather than actively looking for people to interview or case studies, they might look instead to see who's talking about what. So what's trending, what are people talking about, what are people doing? And by doing this as well, they might find a story or find something that inspires them to write a news article. Journalists might also use Twitter to have a look at who's responding to trending topics or breaking news stories. This can be a way for them to find relevant spokespeople, and they could contact them directly without having to put a shout out, such as using journal request. If you want to start doing your own PR, Twitter can be a really good tool to start building relationships with journalists. So you can see what they're tweeting and what they're sharing. So you can see what things they're into, what their latest work is about. And as I've mentioned as well, some of the journalist DMs or direct messages are open, so you don't necessarily have to have them follow you before you can send them a message. Okay, time for another action. Find relevant journalists to follow on Twitter. We've got a blog post which is 100 journalists to follow, so you can use that as a starting point. But you can also have a look in your specific market as well. So, over on the PR Unlocked training and coaching, we actually talk about ways to find specific journalists who are relevant to you and cover the sort of topics that you want to talk about. But you can also do this if you've got an idea of the newspapers or magazines or TV or radio shows that you want to be on. Find out who works there, who are the journalists, who are the editors, and see if they're on Twitter. Once you're following the relevant journalists, it's time to get social because, after all, Twitter is a social media network. So, like, retweet, engage with them, but just don't overdo it. Remember, you don't know these people, and sometimes if you go a bit overboard, it can be really off putting. Use it as a listening tool yourself as well. What are the journalists that you're following? What are they tweeting and sharing? What are they interested in? This could provide some inspiration of something that you could tap into for your own content or when you're pitching in a feature or comment. And if you do want to use Twitter as a tool to pitch in directly to journalists, make sure you pitch with caution. Make sure that you're always being as relevant and specific as possible. Don't waste their time. They're really busy people. Now we're going to look at trending topics. Twitter is a great tool to see what people are talking about and breaking news stories. So if you tune in to what is trending and what's getting a lot of attention on this social media network, then this could provide some really interesting news hooks for your own comments, interviews, and opinions. Trending topics could also provide a good opportunity for you to share some of your own content as well, so things like blogs, podcasts, and videos. There are a few different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you in a minute. So you can look at location trends, so geographically, what are people talking about in the UK, for example, or what are they talking about in the city where you're based. You can also look at moments as well. So moments are a collection of different tweets and content that's been shared in response to a news story or something going on in the wider world. You can search for keywords. And you can also look at what people in your own network are sharing. So if you notice that a few people are liking or retweeting or replying to a tweet that's kind of gone viral, then that could be a really interesting news hook too. Earlier on in the module, I asked you all to find people to follow, and this is why it's important to follow people who are influencers or really knowledgeable about your sector. So I just wanted to talk through an example here. So I was doing a little bit of work for Maria Manda, who you can see there on the right-hand side. Maria has recently started a corporate well-being company. So she works with big businesses to create and implement well-being strategies for their employees. I'd been working on a few media opportunities for Maria, and then I noticed a tweet that had got a lot of retweets and likes. So you can see the tweet on the left here. So this guy works, he's founded a tech company over in the US. I don't follow him myself, but people in my network do. And because it had gone quite viral, this tweet, so he's basically saying that employees don't need ping pong tables or beer fridges at work. They don't need all these toys and treats. They want trust. They want to be able to work flexibly. Now, this really caught my eye because it's a lot to do around well-being and employee benefits, all the sort of things that we'd been talking about in some other media outlets with Maria. This tweet got a lot of engagement, as you can see. So we've had over 1,000 comments, over 31,000 retweets, over 135,000 likes as well. So I used this tweet as a news hook. Now, if you read the traditional media, if you get, say, the Metro newspaper on the way to work, or if you have a look on some of the popular news websites in the morning, you will see that quite often something that's gone viral on Twitter or social media will make the headlines. So this is kind of a way of using Twitter just how journalists would really. I noticed this and I thought there was a lot that we could say about this tweet and explain why so many people had engaged with it. I used this tweet as a news hook to pitch in a feature from Maria to HR Magazine. They really liked the pitch, they thought it was really topical, and so they gave us an 800-word bylined feature. And this is an approach you could consider if you see lots of people talking about a certain topic, or if you notice a tweet's gone viral. If it's in an area that you're an expert on, or you've got some experience or skills or knowledge, then why not use it as your own news hook? Action time. Okay, so I want you to take a look at trending topics now. Have a look on Twitter and set your trending topics in your target location. So you can look to see what's trending in a country, such as the UK, or a specific city or town, such as Manchester or Birmingham. As well as looking at trending topics, also explore the moments function. And when you're scrolling through Twitter, maybe you're on your lunch break or going to and from work, take note of what tweets are getting a lot of attention. Are people sharing and commenting on certain posts? Has anything gone viral? If something's getting a lot of attention and you could add to the conversation and debate, why not use that as your own news hook? This is the final section now, content. Journalists often use Twitter to find vox pops. Vox pop stands for voice of the people. It used to be that journalists would take to the streets to interview people that they would pass about breaking news stories and things that the government had announced. But these days, they don't even need to leave their office to get these. If there's a breaking news story, such as a natural disaster or an attack, they might look to see who's sharing content from the scene, such as videos, pictures, and updates. Or if there's a new announcement, so for example, if the government announces an election, they might see who's responding to the topic or the news and what people's opinions are. Journalists could use tweets and content directly found from Twitter, or they might contact you for an interview or comment. This is an example from a couple of years ago. It was the budget, and in the budget, the Chancellor announced some changes to national insurance contributions for people who are self-employed. The announcement had taken everybody by surprise. I was self-employed at the time and saw the news, and I had an opinion, so I went onto Twitter and I shared my thoughts. I only sent a couple of tweets and I got contacted by a journalist at the Telegraph newspaper. They were not just looking for a written comment, but they wanted a video as well. And after the article was published online, I was approached by several other journalists, including from national and international radio stations. Here's an action for you. If something happens in the news and you feel like you have something to say about it, why not share your thoughts on social media? You can use relevant hashtags to help make sure that you're found by journalists. And make sure your bio is up to date too, so if journalists do come across your tweet, they know that you're an expert in this field. It's always worth having an opinion as well. It's really boring for journalists if they just find people who are sat on the fence and don't have an opinion either way about something. But having an opinion doesn't mean you have to be controversial. If you've got any existing blog posts or articles or any other content which is relevant to the topic that everyone's talking about, you could share those on social media. You should think about what your key hot topics are. So we talk about this a lot in the PR Unlocked training. You need to stay consistent with what you're an expert on and what you can comment on. This will help make you the go-to expert. And if you've got something to say, you could try tweeting or emailing journalists directly too. Okay, that brings us to the end of the free Twitter module from PR Unlocked. So what's next? If you go to prunlocked.com/Twitter, you can get your free Twitter checklist to help you maximise PR and media opportunities. On the PR Unlocked website, you'll also find loads of other resources too, such as podcasts and blog posts and loads of other tools and guides to help you with your PR and media relations. You can also share your thoughts and successes on Twitter tagging @PRUnlocked or using the hashtag #PRUnlocked. I hope you've enjoyed this free course. Please feel free to share it with anybody else who you think will find it useful, and good luck with all your PR and media relations activity.